fans. T-Boz is 13-3 here with top shelf guest, Denver, Colorado native, Wisconsin Badger legend, former Minnesota North Star and Calgary Flame, and longtime college and professional coach Mike Eaves. This episode is sponsored by Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Hertel Law, Ryan Flagg at State Farm Insurance, Dooley's Pub, Williams Diamond Center, and Eau Claire Ford. Mogi.
Oh, this is so exciting. We are here at Shattuck St. Mary's Alumni Room, and we got to give a shout out to a guy that we met today named Rooster. He helped us get it all set up, and he had a couple of really interesting stories for us. So thanks so much, Rooster, for helping us out, and thank you so much, Coach Eaves, for taking time to sit down and talk some hockey with us.
My pleasure. It's always fun to talk a little hockey.
All right.
You come from an athletic father. He played sports as well.
Yeah.
Was there any doubt when you were growing up that you were going to be an athlete because of that?
Well, if my dad was alive with us today, he'd be the first one to tell you that we probably got some of our grit and determination from him, some of our physical skills like quickness and stuff like that. But we got most of our athleticism from our mother. We could not beat her in horse and basketball until we were seniors in high school.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Oh, no. She was good. And she actually at 65, she's born and raised in Calgary too and lives there now. She's still with us. But she's actually a Canadian senior women's curling champion. She was on a team that won that honor back when, she just turned 89. So this is 24 years ago. So she's, my dad would tell you that we got most of our athleticism from our mom.
Well, there you go.
All right,
Mrs. Eaves.
Shout out there.
Absolutely.
I'll tell her to listen to this.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, looking at that then, when did you strap on skates?
I can remember to this day, I was 5 years old. I lived in Denver for 2 years till my dad graduated college. He played football and hockey there, got his degree, his undergraduate degree. We moved back to Calgary where they were both from. They were both born and raised there. And I was 5 years old, and it was the springtime. Have you heard of Chinooks, the warm winds that come out of the mountains?
Yeah.
Okay, so I got skates for Christmas, and I went down to a pond, I think with my mom or dad, to try it on. Well, the Chinook winds came in that day, and the pond started to melt, and so I was skating around in slush, basically, but I can still remember that. And that was my first Chinook as a Calgarian, but I started skating when I was 5, and that was the beginning of it all.
And love at first.
Yeah,
experience.
no, it was just a blast. And then we moved to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. My dad took a coaching and teaching job there, and we played outdoors. There was no indoor ice except there was one chance to get indoor ice. So our little league, so I would have been grades 3 and 4. What's that, 7 and 8? Something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
And if you were good enough, you got chosen to play a 5-minute game indoors between periods of the Saskatoon Blaze junior game. So
Big time.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was the goal for you
Oh,
guys.
man. So my coach picked me up. I'll never forget this. He picks me up for practice, and he dropped me off. He says, "You see that guy with the hat? That's the coach of the All-Star team. Let him know you're here." So I go up and I tug on his shirt and say, "Hey, Coach, my name's Mike Eaves." He says, "Oh, Mike, good. I'll mark you off here. The goalie pads are over there." You know what my thinking was? Well, if you're an all-star, you can play any position. So I went put on the pads, and my coach came back about half hour later, and he goes up to the coach. He says, "Where's the Eaves kid? I don't see him out there." He says, "Well, he's in that net down there. He's not very good." But my mentality at 7, because in street hockey, I was pretty good. But I never played with skates on before. Oh, it was so funny. But I got to play indoors in Saskatoon, and it was really fun. And I remember I tied my skates so tight my feet hurt, because you're so excited to play. But that was the first time I remember my mom, after the game, she had never, back then you dropped your kids off. You didn't stick around because nobody's sticking around outside to watch their kids practice.
That's right.
So she went home but this indoor game she watched and she said, "You're not bad." And that was the first compliment I ever thought, well okay, I took that to heart.
Yeah.
So and then my dad decided that he wanted to. I'm going on this stream here about youth hockey,
You're doing great.
But we. After getting his undergraduate at Denver, we went to Calgary, went to Eugene, Oregon, got his master's there, to Calgary, to Saskatoon. Then we went to Columbus, Ohio in 1966. and he got his PhD there, and he helped build the hockey program there. The rink the women skate in right now is part of what he and another Canadian, I can't remember his name right now, they kind of got it going. But hockey down there was very young. I mean, it was like a house league.
You're talking
team.
Ohio State.
Ohio State, Columbus, Ohio. Yep. And so we were there for 2 years, and we skated at the rink that the women skate in now, and they fixed it up. But I remember my dad would take us out at 6 a.m. so we could get a little extra in, and there'd be figure skaters down at one end, and we were down at this end doing our thing, and that's how we, continued to grow in terms of our skill level. And then we were there for 2 years. He graduated. He took a job with the University of Windsor and was the head hockey coach at Windsor, and he taught in the kinesiology department. He taught anatomy and physics and that stuff. And so, and Windsor had really good youth hockey. We were back in Canada, and so played Pee-wee there and Bantam, and then high school hockey in Windsor. And I know one of the questions they had dealt with, well, when did you start thinking about college? Well, there was a scout, he was an assistant coach, a recruiting, named Bill Rothwell. So as an 11th grader at high school, he was going around and he came to one of our practices and talked to Father Cullen. It was a Brazilian-run school, and he took my name down. Well, the next year we moved. We went to Ottawa, Ontario. My dad quit teaching and became the director of amateur hockey for all of Canada. It was a big-time job, job. So that was my senior year of high school, which was kind of a bummer in that I was leaving all my buddies.
Yeah.
But I had a chance. That's when I played for the Nepean Raiders back, that would have been 1972. But I had a really good year, my first year in junior hockey, just by chance. So that assistant coach from Wisconsin followed up. He called Father Cullen and said, "Hey, how's the Eaves kid doing?" Well, he's not here. He's up in Nepean playing. So he followed me up there. I was having a good year, and one thing led to another, and ended up going to Wisconsin. So that's kind of that journey. You know that country song, "I've Been Everywhere, Boy"? That's kind of like my
Johnny
youth.
Cash.
Johnny Cash, and then so that was growing up, and we moved all over, and I really, my life hasn't changed even when I became a coach. We moved everywhere too. If you look at the resume, we've just continued that pattern. And I guess it's no different than in the Army, or if you're in the business world and you want to keep advancing at a position, you have to be willing to make that move. And thank goodness I married a woman that is independent. Because it would not have worked. Oh my gosh. So, but that's kind of how that early journey of hockey went in our lives.
So you mentioned your dad would open the rink at 6, and you kept using the term "we."
Yeah.
We.
My brothers. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm the oldest of 3 boys.
All
So
right.
I had a middle brother, Paul, and then I know you have my brother Murray.
Yeah.
He's down on this list, and he would come out too. He's 4 years younger than myself.
Okay.
So we would go out there and we would bang around and chase each other around and have stuff like that.
Nice.
Little sibling rivalry, a couple elbows once in a while.
When we were teenagers, there was definitely we bumped shoulders. I always, I have to be honest, I always thought that Murray was a better player than I was. He was bigger. He was about almost 6 feet. He was 190, 195.
Solid boy.
Yeah. And, he played 15, 16 years pro.
Yeah.
Mostly in the American League, some in Europe. But, his story and mine are, I got a break. When we were with the North Stars. My first year in the minors was down in Oak City. Teddy Hampson was my coach, and we were down there, and I had a really good year. I led the team in scoring, was CHL Rookie of the Year, and I was thinking, maybe I got a shot to make the North Stars this year. But if you remember, my first training camp was the Cleveland Barons and Minnesota North Star merged, so we had 2 teams. There was no way I was going to make that team that first year, and even the second year was like. So in training camp my second year, we were playing up at Sault Ste. Marie after practice. You remember Freddie Barrett?
Oh, yeah.
I remember the name.
Number 3, right?
Number 3,
Defenseman.
good memory, yep. So Freddie we were doing a drill after practice. He was shooting and I was tipping him. And a shot came, I tipped, I turned around for the rebound, and he took another shot, hit me in the ankle. And it stung, and so I hobbled through the airport. We went back to Minneapolis, got it x-rayed. Well, it was broke. It was fractured, just a little fracture. So they sent me down. And that summer, my bride and I got married, and so we head down to Oak City, and we get ourselves an apartment. It's like, okay, here we go. And it was like, what are you going to do? You're going to cry in your milk here and say you got a bad break there, or are you going to? So we went after it, and in the first 12 games, I had a lot of success. So I was playing well. Bobby Smith breaks his ankle. He's out for 3 months.
Oh, huge name with the North Stars.
Broke his ankle, and they called me up, and I took advantage of that. 3 months is a long time.
Yeah,
like,
it is
it
a
wasn't
long time.
like,
Yeah.
and they actually put me on the power play, which for a young player gave me great confidence. And we had some
Absolutely.
success.
Yeah.
Craig Hartsburg, Cicerelli, Brad Maxwell. And so I was able to build some confidence so that when Bobby came back, I was playing well enough. They said, you're staying. So I got my break. But I tell you this story because I compare that. I know what Murray went through. And whenever he would get called up, it was fourth line, 6 minutes to 10 minutes of ice a game. And they'd say, well, you didn't produce. Well, that's not my role, know? And so he never really had that opportunity, like that long-term opportunity. And it happens in every business, the music business. If you just hang with me for a moment, there's they have the Americans Got Talent. Well, they have got a show called British Has Got Talent. And I was going through and watching highlights. I'm retired now, so I can do those kind of things. I never did that before.
In your office.
Yeah, in my office, away from my bride.
What are you doing in there, honey? Oh, nothing.
And so there is this woman named Sydney Christmas, and she gets up on stage, and she is so good that they hit the golden buzzer. And that Simon guy, who can be a little bit of a curmudgeon, he talked about she's been trying to get that break in music, and she never could get it. Like, she was a superstar. And all these judges were like right there, and she ended up winning the whole season. And maybe she has her break now, so she can do this for a living. Okay. But it's in every realm of life. Sometimes you're at the right place at the right time, and you do the right things. And it's a fact of life. And I'm sure you guys have stories that are similar in your life about something like that. But Murray never had that long-term break, and so he went down a different path. And he's in the American League Hockey Hall of Fame. He won two Calder Cups. He was a captain. He scored multiple. He had multiple years where he had over 100 points. Like, he was a good player.
Holy cow!
He was a good player.
Think if he was around today.
Yeah.
32 teams.
Yeah.
He would.
It's a different game now.
Yeah, it certainly is. Yeah.
It's funny. I talked to our son Ben about this. Ben he played at Boston for 4 years, had a nice college career, and then he turned pro. He was drafted in the 4th round by Pittsburgh and sent to the minors. He had some knee injuries, but he went over to Finland for a while and played well enough to get another contract.
Nice.
With Nashville. So he came back over, but the rules had changed. So he said when he came back over, he went to the front of the net and was just expecting to get cross-checked and slashed. He said, there was nothing. It was like, hallelujah, and he said it was a totally different game, And so, like, for guys my size, or Mark Johnson, who was not a big man and still did the things he did, it's a different type of game right now. The speed and the skill is much more emphasized. There's still the strength factor in that, but the game is different now.
Skill factor.
Yeah.
Skating,
puck handling, passing. You've got to be able to skate. If you can't skate, you can't play. Yeah. I remember I told my dad my first exhibition game was against the Detroit Red Wings. And we played. I called him up after the game. I said, Dad, I can't play. The game's too fast. He said, what do you mean? He said, well, Dad, I'm going one way, they're going the other. I'm going this way, they're going that way. He said, it was just unbelievable. And it was just the way I'm talking right now, seeing the way the game was going. And he said, it'll slow down. And he was right. I mean, the more I played, the game slowed down. Then, the thing about being a veteran is when you look at something, you see immediately what's going on and you know what you're going to do. These pro quarterbacks, they get better with age because they can read the defenses because they've seen them. They can anticipate. So it's one of the funniest stories I tell because I thought there's no way I could play here because of speed. So going back to the skill at the level now in the game, like, actually I have to tell you this. So we're sitting at the Shattuck rink here and they've got hockey schools going on. Our 11-year-old grandson was here for 2 weeks, and I'm watching 11 and 12 years old. The things they can do with the puck and the way they shoot, like they're all doing the Michigan at 11 and 12. They're all doing it during these small games, and they can do it. So the level has gone up that way just because every generation is creating a new skill set and advancing the game with stuff that we never even were thinking. We thought the toe pull was something.
Oh, yeah.
I remember Timmy Young. Remember Timmy Young? Yep. Timmy Young used to do this move where he would kind of throw the puck out to the defenseman on the ice, and then he would toe pull it back and flip it up. And the defenseman would go, what the hell? And then Timmy would knock it down between his legs and pick it up on the other side. Well, that was a high-level skill. High-end skill. Mike Eaves wasn't doing that. Tim Young was doing that. But that was as high as we were doing then, but there was no Michigan and stuff going on back then. So, yeah, the skill level is changing the game.
Absolutely, yeah.
You have these stories are great.
Okay, we're not going by script at all.
I just about 8 questions, and I'm like, no, we're getting there.
Don't change. So we've talked about you playing at Wisconsin a little bit, and the fact that you made pro. What was the skill set you possessed that these people were looking at?
I'll begin this answer by sharing with you my last year. I retired last fall, so I was in the hockey business for 45 years, 8 as a player, 36 as a coach. My last year, I was a pro scout with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So, and it was really interesting job in that when I went out and watched people, young people, at the American League level. So I was a pro scout. So it was American League and pro teams. Yeah. And we would do reports just in case there was a trade coming up. And we had information about people that were potentially, especially free agents, unrestricted free agents or free agents. So as I'm watching these kids and asking myself, okay, where do they fit in? Well, one of the first things you do is you go back, well, where would I have fit in? And so, you talk about top end skill, like first line, second, third, fourth line roles as a forward group, and then your top 4 defensemen, then the 5, 6 defensemen that are more steady at home, physical maybe. And so when I looked at myself, I said, well, I was never a top line guy. I probably in today's vernacular would be called a middle 6. I didn't have enough magic offensively, like goal scoring, but I saw the game pretty well. And I had passing skills. I could make a good pass. And because I could see where plays were developing, I could get it to guys that could shoot and score, that had that magic. But I was trustworthy. I could play that they call a 200-foot game now. Yeah. That was in my repertoire. So that's probably, in terms of my skill set, was that ability to see the game, play 200 feet. But I had enough skill not to play with the top guys, but with that middle 6.
Well, you certainly played with the top guys when you're at Wisconsin. Okay, you are still the all-time leading scorer with the Badgers. You led them to a national championship. Mm-hmm. Tell us about your time playing at Wisconsin.
Well, that should be the biggest asterisk in the world beside that record you just said, that I'm still the leading scorer, because what happens nowadays, guys, all the good please. and I'm going to
wasn't going to say that, Mike.
Oh, no. We're going to self-deprecate right here, right now. But so I've had this. Mark Johnson and I are good friends. Our families are good friends, and Leslie, his bride, and my bride, Bethy, we stay in touch with one another. And we have talked about the fact, I said, Mark, do you realize that you're 10 points behind me and a full season in your pocket? Can you imagine what the record would be if Mark had to come back for his 4th year? Or Danny Heatley, or you could go on and name all the guys. So you could actually win a drink in a bar by asking that question. It's never going to change unless that.
Win a drink in a bar.
A refreshment, a band over. But we were a little bit in the heydays back then. They just won in '73, and it's funny. One of the questions that you had down was, how'd you get to Wisconsin? Well, I had 2 visits. I went to Michigan. And I went to Wisconsin. I went to Michigan first. They played Michigan Tech on a weekend, and it was Yost Arena was jammed, and they got the Michigan Tech band, and it was unbelievable. And I would have signed on the dotted line right there had I not had that visit to Wisconsin lined up. So I took the visit. I didn't even see a game at Wisconsin. I saw the arena when the ice was out, saw the locker room, but I fell in love with the campus. And I remember having this thought as I'm walking around, look at Lake Mendota, like, even if I didn't play hockey, I would be happy here. And that's why I went.
Nice.
I mean, I met Bob Johnson. His name didn't mean anything to me, because I hadn't as a Canadian.
Sure.
And so, but it was the campus itself and that I fell in love with. And it was a heart thing, is what my heart was telling me. But I'll tell you what, that was the first time in my life I had to man up and make a tough phone call to the Michigan coach. And tell him that, Coach, I'm sorry, I'm going to go to Wisconsin, which is all part of growing up. We've all gone through a situation like that, but going to Wisconsin, was tremendous. There was, some of the best times in my life. Met my bride there. Our freshman year, we had a team that was okay. We were in the middle of the pack. The next year, we lost two guys to the Olympic team, John Taft and Steve Alley. So we had a super young team, 13 guys that were underclassmen, but we got to play a lot. So, and then the next year, Steve Alley and John Taft come back. Mark Johnson comes in, and it's like we go, 33-3 or something? I'm not sure what it was. We had a really good team, and we clicked, and we ended up winning it all. And it was a fun group to be a part of. And Bob was back then he was a student of the European power plays. So we had the Czech power play. We had the Russian power play. And we had the guys that could snap it around. Craig Norwich was as good as anybody on the blue line. And Mark, one of Mark's gifts, Mark Johnson's gifts, is he could one-time a puck. And it that transferred into him being successful at the pro level too. But Steve Alley, Tom Alseth, John Taft, Mike Meeker. I mean, we had two power plays. It was 1A and one little A. It was that good. So, and then, the next year we had a good team too. We ended up going to the NCAA finals, and we were on an absolute roll in the playoffs. I mean, we swept through Michigan. We were just playing so good. And then we had 2 weeks off before the finals, and we lost that edge, and we couldn't repeat. And it was the first time that when you have it rolling, you want to play. And we backed off. I remember Grant Stanbrook was our assistant coach, and he had us doing two-a-days and doing stuff to try to keep that edge that we had. But we lost that edge. We lost I think it was BU 5-4. And in a game where we weren't our best, And that happens in sports. It's funny. All sports, they have those days where they're not they don't have their A game. And that was the day we didn't have it that day. But great time with those guys. And still stay in touch with some of them. Steve Alley is a good bud that he does some investing for us. So one of his daughters just got married in Chicago this winter. So we went down there. So Tommy Alseth lives in the area up in the Minneapolis. So we get together with John Taft and a couple of roommates and Dave Lundeen. Remember that name?
Oh, heck yeah.
Bob Lundeen. Dave has passed. Sorry, it was Bob Lundeen.
Was he a Minneapolis Southwest kid?
Yes. So those are names from the past.
Yeah.
The encyclopedia over here.
Is that right? Oh, he's got that reputation.
He's got that. Oh,
nice.
He knows it.
That's good. That's good. So those are the Wisconsin days. And then I met my bride there, and we didn't meet till our junior year, and then that has been 45 years of marital bliss. At least on my part, I don't know about her. She'd have to answer that question for herself. But
you need another podcast.
Yeah, did I say that, honey? If you're listening. So and then her mom and dad. When it was really fun, when we did come back to Madison to coach, Bethy's folks were still alive, and they were in their 80s. And actually, we took Pops golfing. I don't know if you knew this, but Bethy's dad is in the Athletic Hall of Fame, Tom Bennett. He was a football player. He helped start the golf program. He was a track coach, football coach. He played football at Wisconsin, was one of the premier pole vaulters in the country back in his day. And then he went to World War II and came back. Yeah, he was special. He loved to golf. So up till he was 90, we would take him golfing on his birthday, and coming back to Madison was almost redemption for moving around so much, because we got to be in her backyard, and she had time to spend with her mom and dad. And unfortunately, Bethy's mom just passed away at 94. Pops died at 95. So they both are in a better place right now. But I really am happy that we had that time back in Madison for Bethy, because we got to spend time, really quality time with her folks.
It's important. No
Families,
doubt about that.
Yeah.
You, over your playing career, played for many hockey coaches. Where does Bob Johnson fit into that realm?
Bob was not your typical pro coach. The things that I look back, and people have asked me this question before, and what did you take away from Bob? I think the biggest takeaway is Bob always built on the positive. Always. No matter what happened, I can tell you one story that just exemplifies that. It was we were 1986. It was February, and we hadn't won in 8. And at that level, when you're not winning, it's tough to come to the rink. Like life, there's a big cloud. It's heavy, and we were playing out at Hartford. And Hartford had this song that they played every time they scored a goal. It was a trumpeters thing, and it was brutal. I could try to sing it for you, but I'm not going. I'm going to save the audience that. But we lost 8-1.
Oh, so you heard that song a lot.
And it was just on. So we come in the locker room after, and guys are just, we don't know. We've had meetings. The players have had meetings. The GM had a meeting. We got to play tougher. We got to do this, and nothing is working. So through all this, and this is just, so we lose. Bob comes into the locker room and he says, guys, I know we lost 8-1. But that power play goal we scored is the prettiest goal I've seen all year. I think we're coming. And he turned and he walked out of the room. Guys are throwing gloves at him. But it tells a story. That's the year we went to the finals, 1986. We went and we lost to Montreal in the finals, but we turned it around and got going. But Bob was always about building on the positive. And I think that was refreshing for pro guys. I think I know guys were skeptical of Bob because he came from college. He wasn't a pro guy, never played pro hockey, and there's a certain mentality that pro coaches have. Yeah. There's correction first. There's no compassion. Yeah. You're getting it full barrels, and you've got to be a man and take it and turn it into something good. Well, Bob wasn't like that. Bob was about, hey, this you're doing well. We need to get better in this area. We need to fix this. We need to grow in that area. And then, and it was the same way he brought a little bit of a coaches in terms of strategy. He was one of the, guys that when we played Edmonton, we played them a lot. The rivalry to Edmonton-Calgary was ridiculous. And we would play them, and every year we got better. I went there in 83, 84. And we got spanked. And then 84, 85, we got a little better. In 85, 86, we beat them. It was a lucky goal. It went off the defenseman Steve Smith into the net. You remember that one?
I do remember that.
And we end up beating them in Game 7 and going to the finals. But we kept getting better. And part of that was Bob and the way he coached, his style of coaching, what he brought in innovatively to the pro level. So, yeah, but and going back to answer that in a succinct way, it was his building on the positive stuff that I take away from Bob.
All right, let's give a little shout out to our sponsors. How about that?
All right.
Dooley's Pub has been Eau Claire's home for hockey and all sports fans since 2005. Dooley's Pub is a proud booster of the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire and all the local high schools. Dooley's is located on historic Water Street, providing excellent food and service, and has all of your favorite sports televised at all times. And Williams Diamond Center is a fun and friendly place to find your next sparkling signature piece. Whether you're looking for a custom designed engagement ring, an anniversary gift, or a self-purchase to celebrate yourself, Williams has price points for every story and budget. Buyers and sellers of estate jewelry, coins, and more. And Eau Claire Ford Lincoln Quick Lane. With a large selection of new and used vehicles available, we buy nice used vehicles any day of the week except Sundays. Eau Claire Ford is here for all your parts and service needs for your vehicle. Ask us about our pickup and delivery options as well as Saturday service appointments. Visit us today in store or online at www.eauclaireford.com. Eau Claire Ford Lincoln Quick Lane is a proud sponsor of the Breakout Sessions podcast.
You were talking about the playoffs with Calgary. I think it was 1986. You were helping coach at that time with Bob Johnson. Player goes down with an injury. You come out of retirement. What was going through your mind?
Well, I noticed that in the questions, there was a question there about with the North Stars. We went to the finals against the Islanders.
Yep.
I didn't play in that series because I had a concussion. And that ultimately what was my demise as a player. So in training camp in '86, we were out playing in the Quebec Nordiques, and Pat Price cross-checked me from behind, got a penalty. I came back to the bench, I went on the bench, and all of a sudden I'm like this feeling of deja vu. And I thought, that's not right. Like, I didn't get hit that hard to have something, and I'd been hit hard. I mean, believe me. so I called my bride after the game. I said, Bethy, there's something not right here. Like, that shouldn't have happened. So we went back. We did all the neurological tests, and the doctor said to me, well, Mike, I've got news for you here. He says, there's nothing permanently wrong with you. But because of your history, I can't guarantee the next time that you get hit that you might not have problems. And you know what? It's something that inside of me, snapped. Maybe not like Barry Sanders, where he just decided to quit, to retire when he still could have played, but inside that's what I'm trying to correlate here is inside, and I just said, no, this is not right. So Bob said, well, why don't you hang out and be like an assistant coach?
Okay,
like a player coach. So I did that. I took the opportunity to write down all my thoughts about hockey. I wrote a little encyclopedia, what hockey was to me, what systems and skills you needed, and this and that. And the secretary for the Flames actually typed it up for me. Nice. So when I went into Eau Claire, I had a little booklet ready to go. So I'm out there at practice, and I would put pucks in the corner if somebody went down. And they needed somebody. I could jump in because there was no contact. I could facilitate the drill, if you will.
Sure.
I remember one day, though, Cliff Fletcher, he saw me practicing, and I was getting involved, and he comes running down. He says, you take that hockey, excuse my friends here, shit off, and you're a coach now. No more of this. So I took my stuff off with my tail between my legs. But in the meantime, I was working out. I started swimming as my major way of staying in shape. We had a pool in the complex that we were in. And then Kerry Wilson, I don't know if you remember that name. He played in North Dakota, and he got hit or speared, but they had to take his spleen out.
Oh.
And so he was done. He was done. And Bob sat myself and Bethy down. To sit a wife down at the pro level was unheard of. Like, this was between the men. He said, hey, I'm thinking about asking you if you could come back and maybe not in the first couple rounds, but maybe if we run into injuries, play, kill penalties for us, play a fourth line role. And Bethy and I talked about it. I was feeling really good. And I went with my heart again. And so I got to play in the semifinals against St. Louis, and I played a couple games in the finals against Montreal. So I got to experience that, and it was very special. It was very special.
You played in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yep. I remember my last goal was against St. Louis at home, and I just remember my teammates being so pumped, like in disbelief, like, you actually scored, man. And I was done. I was out. And it was funny because Lanny McDonald is a good buddy, and I look at the way that he gets retired is the best way you get to retire. Game 7. In Montreal, on the road, he scores the goal that makes it 4-2, so they win the Stanley Cup, and he retires, and so, that was my Landy's thing. I got to retire on that note, having the chance to play in the Stanley Cup Finals, and Chelios was on that team that year. They won.
Okay.
Yeah, he was there. Chris was there. So, but that's a little, when you ask me a question, it's going down many different roads. You asked about the Calgary, and we went first with the Islanders, but we got to it. We get
there.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
So where is that puck now? Your last goal?
Oh, I have no idea. No, I don't know where it went. I don't know where my first puck went. I scored on Roger Vachon from Al McAdam, 5-hole, and that's a thrill. That is really something. And what's really special is the guy that sets you up on your first goal, that's like an unbreakable bond. Al McAdam and I, for years, I've lost touch with him the last couple of years, but we were close because of that. I remember setting up Perry Berezan. He was out of North Dakota, up in Calgary, and that's a bond like between Perry and I. He still brings it up. Do you remember when you set me up on that goal? You know, so that's a very special thing in hockey, in the game of hockey.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
I totally buggered you guys up because I have jumped up all over the place.
I'm trying to follow on my little
Oh, that went to heck in a handbasket a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, let's move this way. So you were drafted, I think it was the 7th round into the NHL.
Yeah.
Do they even have 7 rounds anymore?
They do now. They're actually talking about not doing that anymore.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
Yeah, they're actually. I heard rumors that they might just bring kids in for the first 2 rounds. They're looking to make changes at that. It's, but yeah, 7th round. I didn't go. I got a phone call. With our 2 sons, I got to experience. Ben and I went down to Florida, and he got drafted in the 4th round. Which that's what it's more about is the experience of being together as a father-son.
Yeah.
And then
Cool
Patrick
player.
was a different experience because he got drafted at the end of the 1st round, and so that there's a little bit more lights on that one. But it was still the same experience of being there as a family and sharing that. So that was pretty special. But yeah, the 7th round was a phone call. Hey, Mike, you just got drafted. Well, who? And then in college, I know it's on here, but I got traded for a guy I never heard of, Len Frigg.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you remember that name.
I remember his name, but I never met the man, and got traded to the Cleveland Barons.
Cleveland Barons. That's how you ended up with the North Stars.
Well, here's a funny story. Another one is the fact that in the spring of my senior year, just graduated from Wisconsin, after the season, after the NCAA tournament, I flew to Cleveland, and I signed my contract with the Guns were the Gun brothers were the owners of the team. I'm trying to remember the GM. He escapes me right now, but signed my contract, flew home. About 2 weeks later, the 2 teams merged, Minnesota. And then I ended up coaching in the American League in Cleveland all these years later. I got back there and actually got to spend the time there. By the way, Cleveland is a good town. It's sneaky good. Oh, I'm telling you what, we enjoyed the heck out of it. If you guys get a chance to go, the Music Hall of Fame, it's got the 2nd largest theater district in North America next to New York City. The shows that you can get there are unbelievable. And then the park system, it's first in the whole country.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Right out of Lake Erie, there's a river that goes down. You can fly fish 15 minutes from downtown. There's horseback riding. There's golf courses down there.
And renowned medical.
Oh, my
down
gosh.
there, Cleveland
Yeah.
Clinic.
Yeah, Cleveland Clinic.
So did you do any wildlife fishing on Lake Erie?
I went with a couple of the guys on the team.
I bet you did.
They had salmon. They were catching salmon. They're up in their waders. And, it's a sneaky good city in the different ethnic groups and the restaurants. It was, So if you ever get a chance, it's worth going.
You certainly did enjoy it, boy.
We
That's
did.
for sure.
Yeah.
JC, we're going to Cleveland.
There you go.
So, Mike, you're born in the U.S.
Yes.
You spent a lot of your time as a youngster and even as an adolescent in Canada. But you ended up playing for the U.S. national team, 76 and 78. How did that happen, and what was that experience like?
Well, it was being born in Denver. I was naturalized an American.
Sure.
Yeah.
But my folks, they did take out papers for me back then. I have a social insurance number. Like back then, remember the term dual citizenship?
Yes.
And I don't think that exists anymore, but I have a U.S. passport and I have a Canadian social insurance number. So if we did move back there, I could work, but we chose to stay down here. So being naturalized an American, my chances of playing internationally were more enhanced by being, from the States. So, in 76, I tried out for the Olympic team, but they had this rule: you can only take 2 players off any single college team. So we had 2 guys that were going. They were both upperclassmen, and then it was Craig Norwich and myself went to that training camp, and we both played very well and shoulda, coulda made that team, but because of this rule, we didn't. Both of us had to go back. But so in 76, instead of taking us on the Olympic team, they took us to the World Championship. And it was in Katowice, Poland. And I want to tell you, I have eye-opening experience going over there and playing. Like all of a sudden, you're playing against college guys. So your oldest college guy might be 22 back then because you went 18 to 22 and you were gone.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm playing against men. And my first game was against the Finns. And they are noted for being gristly and strong. And it was like, oh my, I'm not in Land of Oz anymore. This was real. But it was just a tremendous, and I got to score on my childhood goalie, Tretiak from Russia. I scored on a 2-on-1. Yeah. Can you imagine?
Wow, that's huge.
Well, we just talked about Bob Lundin.
Yeah.
Bob was on that team from South St. Paul, and it was a 2-on-1. Bob passed me a puck that I could one time. It went stick side low, and I go, wait till the boys back home. That was my comment, I swear to gosh. Because we all grew up watching them.
Oh, absolutely.
We were talking about the Summits.
Legend.
Oh, my
Legend.
God, yeah.
Soviet hockey.
Yeah, so that was. So the international thing, just the traveling and playing against the best in the world and different styles of hockey was eye-opening. And the way they moved the puck in the power play and the emphasis. We were all playing back then on Olympic sheets over there, so you had to skate, you had to be able to pass, and it was just a great experience, one that I cherish.
Your first actual NHL experience was with the Minnesota North Stars.
Yeah.
What was that like stepping on the ice for the very first time in an NHL uniform?
I played 3 games at the end of my first year pro. I'd been down in Oklahoma City, and they had a 3-game road trip at the end of the year. They said, just bring him up. We'll give him some games, the kid. He had a pretty good year. So I actually don't remember a damn thing about the first game. It was just a blur. Just a blur.
Oh.
And I'm sure it was much like my exhibition game where it was so fast I couldn't believe it. But again, I just remember after the game, like, it's just another level. Like this summer, you got to get back, and you got to get stronger and better conditioned. And that was one of the things we were talking about, myself as a player and my ability to see the game and make passes. I think my dad being in kinesiology, and when he took that job and was traveling around the world for amateur hockey for Canada, he brought a lot of stuff back from Russia. And so training was a big part of what I was able to get into at a young age. So I could recover quickly on the bench. I was in pretty good shape. And that was one of my strengths, is that, by the third period, I might look a little better because I'm not as tired. I can do my skills at a higher level because I'm not a little bit tired. So, but going over there and seeing that was a really great thrill. The second world champion was in Prague, Czechoslovakia. And if you've never been there, that's one of the great cities of the world because it did not, it was left pretty untouched by World War II. So the architecture and the buildings and the bridges are just beautiful. I'll tell you, when I talk about World Championships, it became so much more than just the hockey because it was the life experience of being in these other countries. But when we were in Poland, we got to go to Auschwitz. And I share this with you because I'm a 19-year-old kid. It's a beautiful March day, maybe April. And, I kind of know what Auschwitz is, but when you walk in and you see the sign "Work for Freedom" and you go and you look at the blueprints of the showers and you see bins of glasses and shoes and you see where people got off trains, you're going, what this happened? Yeah. It was bone chilling is the only way to put it, but it affected me as a human being and I'm sure helped me grow up in some form or fashion, seeing the remnants of something like that. So it was the hockey was great, but it was the growing up experience of being in another part of the world and seeing other people's culture that was really fun.
Wow.
Powerful.
Right, take a second here to give a shout out to Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine has been committed to the healthcare needs of patients in Western Wisconsin since 1954. The orthopedic surgeons and athletic trainers serve many area schools. And we've got Hertel Law, the law firm you want on your side, focusing on criminal offense and personal injury. Harry Hertel has been obtaining results for clients in the Chippewa Valley since 1981. When you need legal help, if injured or accused of a crime, call 715-832-4330 for a free in-person consultation. And then for all your family's insurance needs, see Ryan Flagg at State Farm Insurance in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Ryan has been a proud backer of the hockey community for decades and continues to play the game himself. Moog.
JC, I got to tell you, while you're doing a great ad read there, Coach Eaves got my ear and he said, "Hey, we got to talk about Finland."
Oh,
So,
all right.
we need to talk about Finland.
We
evidently.
do. We do. This is another, I think we're piggybacking off of the international theme we're on here
That's
a little
great.
bit.
Yeah.
So we were out in Philadelphia. We were talking about Bobby Clark earlier, and I worked for Bobby out there. Actually, we were in the Flyer organization for 6 years. 2 in Philly, was assistant coach Paul Holmgren, South St. Paul boy.
Yes.
And
He's been on the podcast.
yeah, is he? He's one of my favorites.
We went to
Homer.
the same high school together.
Oh,
Not
my God.
together, but yeah.
What an athlete he was. We could spend 15 minutes on
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
Should have played football, though.
He's still a stud now. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. he was 6'3", 210, moved like a cat. I mean, we played racquetball. And funny story about Homer, if you happen to hit him with the ball, like if you're playing 3 people, you knew where the next ball was coming. Am I right, Moog? Am I right? It was right out. You'd get to the tee and you just squeeze. Here it comes.
It's coming.
So we were out there, and then I went to Hershey for 3 years, and then we came back to Philly for a year. And Clarkie, in all of this, was the GM. Then he got fired. Mr. Schneider fired him, believe it or not. And Bobby was like Mr. Flyer.
Absolutely.
So we were there, and then after Philadelphia, they didn't rehire us back. They let us go. So we were looking for a position, and we looked at some American League jobs, and then we decided to come to Shattuck. Craig Norwich was here running the program, and he's got his fingerprints all over this place. And he says, "Yeah, we need a coach," and so we brought the family out here. So we're here for 2 years. Kids love it. They still to this day, this is the best house we ever had, was a little cabin out back here. Oh. Location, 100 yards from the rink. You know, it was a playground for them. So we're here 2 years. I get a call from Billy Zito. Billy at the time, he's the GM of the Florida Panthers. He was a player agent just trying to get his feet in the ground, and he got a lot of Europeans, especially Finns. So he says, "Hey, Ever, Jarmo Kekalainen, former GM of the Columbus Blue Jackets, he's a GM of a team in Helsinki, and he wants an American coach. He wants to do something different. And your name came up, and what do you think?" I said, "Billy, you know, we just moved here. It's been 2 years. The kids love it. I think we're good." So I go home that night. We're having dinner in the cafeteria because that's where we eat here, the cafeteria at school, along with 1,500 other little ones. And I tell Bethy the phone call, and she goes, "Well, you mean we have a chance to live abroad and be educated and kids have a new experience?" I go, whoa, back to Charlie up here. We just got here. Kids love it, and you want to go? And she said, "Oh, you got to call them back, see if they got anybody to coach." So I called them back. They didn't get anybody to coach. We did the interview. We got the job. We pack up the dog, the 2 kids, and we fly right over to Helsinki, Finland, and we signed a 2-year deal, and we're living in an apartment downtown Helsinki. The kids, they went to a Finnish English school, and so they had to take a trolley and a train to get there. Later on, we found out that there wasn't much English going on, so it was kind of a waste of their time. So they would take the train, go downtown, and they'd go down to the sports hall and play around all day. So we only lasted 1 year because school wasn't working. But we had one of the best years of our life. We still talk about it to this day. The boys still have good friends that live in Helsinki and have come over and visited. But it was, we'd come home every night and sit around a table like this and have dinner and tell each other the silly things we did because we didn't know the customs, you know. And it was a rock star year. But Finland was really, really a lot of fun. Wow. Yeah.
We had been talking before the mics got turned on about the difference between Coach Clark and the player, Bobby Clark.
Yeah.
Want to give our listeners a little insight of the differences between coaching with and playing against this guy?
Well, if Clarkie had to break his mother's ankle in order to win a game, he might. Well, he certainly did that against the best Russian player back in 1973 in that series between Russia, Summit Series. And he was probably the ultimate competitor and teammate, and was such a good captain. You know, looking back, I used one of his quotes with all my teams that was credited to him about things that a good leader does. It was a full page. And then when I got to meet the man, you know, he was even a better boss. And the way he ran his business, we were up at St. Cloud before we moved to Philadelphia. So we had a house up there, and we couldn't sell it in time to go out and buy a house in Philly. And the real estate agent said, don't worry about it. Clarkie will give you the money for the house. And you just pay him back when you sell your house. You just give him what he gave you, and no interest. I said, where do I sign? He said, no handshake, just a handshake.
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
And so we were there, and the first couple of weeks, we only had one vehicle at that time. And Clarkie says, you need another car. Let me give you one of mine. He gave me a Mercedes 450 SL red convertible, soft top. And
Nice.
I said, Clarkie, I can't drive that. Like I'm not going to be responsible. Either take it, but like. What was his was yours. He would give you the shirt off his back, and as a GM, he was very calm. He was very thoughtful. But in the competitive world, when it was on the line, he would have done anything to win, and he did. So yeah, it was just. And the little unknown fact about Clarkie is that we exchanged books when we were there. Like, he was a ferocious reader. And so we would, him and my bride too, we would exchange books. Like, a bright guy, like, you see the competitive side of him, but that's just one side. He's got another side that's pretty intellectual and bright and articulate. It was fun to see that other side of him.
Rather than going up against his stick on the ice.
Oh, he was vicious. We actually had some talks about that, and he said there was only one guy, and I'm not going to name his name, but there's one guy he says I went after. I just had enough. And I stuck him. And that was just to send a message. But that was a game back then. The Broad Street Bullies, that was part of their success story, so, but that was a different era.
Well, didn't you have an interaction with Bobby on a face-off one time that resulted in a little?
I had to go there. I didn't think you were going to, but yeah, it was a face-off in Philadelphia. And battling for it, his stick came up and split me for 8 on the lip. I went in and got stitched, and I came out, and I was ticked. And here I was trying to run around and hit him. I'm in Philadelphia with all the guys he's got his team. After the game, what the hell was I thinking? What was I thinking? I could have lost my life. And then Bethy's so funny, my bride, first time he meets him, he says, Mr. Clark, I don't really like you very much because, you split Michael open for a few stitches on the lip. And he says, well, I might have. I don't remember. And from there on, they went to be best of friends. But that was my bride, right up front. So
sticking up for her guy.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
We've talked a lot about your hockey career. We'd be remiss if we didn't touch upon your lengthy and very successful coaching career.
Yeah.
You coached for a while in town I'm living in now, Eau Claire, for the Blue Golds, and of course went D1 on to professional level. What was that like starting at the D3 level? Did you have fun back then?
Oh my gosh, I got to tell you guys, especially because Hobbs Arena. But so I retired. I come back into play. I'm getting a job interview from Steve Kurth, the AD, during the finals. During the finals of the Stanley Cup, he flies up, and we go out for dinner after a game when we're doing the interview. He offers a job. We accept the job. As soon as the playoffs are over, we pack up our van. We got a 4x9 open-end trailer. We're coming across the prairies. We look like the Beverly Hillbillies. We got sugar flying out of the back of that thing. We got the ironing board in the back, 2 babies, So we get down to Eau Claire. We live in the dorm for 6 weeks because school's out. We put the trailer in Steve Kurth's garage, and we live in the dorm. And we live there until we can find a house. And it was a great year. And what I didn't want to be assistant. I wanted to be a head right away. I wanted to see if I liked it. I wanted to do everything right away to see. I didn't want to mess around and tinker. I wanted to jump into the deep end, and we did. We got $5,000 from Steve, and we built a locker room with 7 volunteers. We took pictures of the Calgary locker room, and we cut out the plywood to look like Calgary. We painted it. We put indoor-outdoor carpet. We moved upstairs to the second level of Hobbs Arena. Oh, yeah. We had to shower downstairs after the game.
Towels coming downstairs with the players.
Yeah. Actually, we ended up taking the clothes downstairs after a while.
Oh,
so they could walk down and then change down there and take
some of
stuff.
those guys like to have the towel wrapped around their waist. I think
Probably
they did that on purpose.
Yeah. So But I drove the van to River Falls. I sharpened skates. I learned to drive a Zamboni. I didn't tell too many people I could sharpen skates. That was only an emergency. You don't want people to know that because they're bugging you all the time.
Right.
But we did everything. When we had breaks in the wintertime, we did 2-a-days. We went outside. We found outdoor rinks and skated out there. So we literally did everything that you do with a program, and I discovered I did like it. It's a crazy job, guys.
Well, I can't imagine,
being a coach, I never realized it till I retired. And then when you sit back, how it's never off your mind. It's never off because you got to work with this young man, or this young man's got a problem in his personal life, or you got this power play, or you got to go recruiting here. I mean, if you get 3 or 4 hours off to watch a movie, that's a weekend. That's a big span of time. But you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm glad I did it. It's what I love. It's like, you guys are doing this. You're not getting paid. You do it because you love it. It's fun.
Yeah.
And that's what coaching was for me. It was hard at times, yes. But it was overall, the overall arching thing was it was fun, and I enjoyed that.
And your alma mater came calling, and you ended up back at Wisconsin.
Yeah. I never saw that coming. I when we were in Hershey coaching, I had a thought that, wouldn't that be fun to do? I mean, a fleeting thought. But we're so involved in trying to win there. And, at that time, I was thinking pro. Maybe I could be a pro coach, go to the NHL. And then Pat Richter called up and said, we're looking to make a change, would be interested. And it was like, oh man, that was really fun to get that call. And then we ended up getting it. And we were there for 14 wonderful years, just great years.
So was it more fun for you to win the championship as a player or as a coach? I'm sure they were different experiences.
Yeah. And actually I'd read that before because you were so gracious to give me the questions, and I would put some thought in that. But I think they're different in that, when you're a player, you are emotionally and physically tied into what you're doing. As a coach, your emotions have to be governed. You're still, it's the next best thing to playing, but you're not out there physically. Yeah. So there's more of a sense of satisfaction for a job well done when you win. But I will say this, and I think it's something that should be talked about for all young coaches, understanding the fact that it's hard to win and there's luck involved. And sometimes it's not your time, and sometimes it is. And that is an honest-to-goodness fact about life, so.
Wow. As you look back in your coaching career, no matter what level it was, you have to look at different sets of players depending upon where you're coaching, I would assume.
Yes.
But when it boils down to, let's say, the top 3 things that you want in a player, whatever level it is, what are those top 3 things that you're looking for?
First and foremost, you have to have the heart of a wrestler. You have to be competitive. You have to be competitive. And even as a coach, you have to be that way. You have to be competitive. Second thing that I would put on that list is hockey IQ. And then third things would be a set of skills, whatever that set that you bring, because everybody has a different set of skills. So like a guy that and he's from Plover, Wisconsin, is one of my favorites, Joe Pavelski.
Oh, yeah.
Like competitive, check.
Oh, yeah.
Hockey IQ, check. Skill set, he's not a great skater. Joe is an adequate NHL skater, but he makes up for it with his hockey IQ and his skill set that he brings to the table. And then he's just such a tremendous human being in terms of who he is and his habits, all that kind of stuff. But those would be the 3 things that I would put in there. And there might be some that would switch skills and hockey IQ, but if you don't have the compete thing, you're not going to last very long.
Yeah. So you had 2 sons along the way, and it sounds like they were part of a phenomenal journey in their lives. They both ended up at Boston College while you were coaching the Badgers. So I'm just wondering, how come they never wore the red and white?
Ben was, Wisconsin never came up for Ben. I don't know why. He wanted to go out east. There was something in his soul that told him to go out east.
Okay.
And so he did. And then when it was his turn, we actually recruited Patrick.
Oh, you did? Okay.
We did. We brought him on campus. He went to a football game. He said, Dad, I just can't go here. I'd have way too much fun.
At least he was honest with you.
but he did say he did want to play with Ben too. That was one of his things on his bucket list, because they had played together a little bit in youth hockey and enjoyed that. Sure. And they're very close. They're 25 months apart. They're best friends in the world. They are best buddies. And it's funny because Ben could see at a young age that Patrick was pretty skilled. But Patrick always thought that Ben was the best, in terms of skill. But it was kind of flip-flop that way. But they really have a wonderful relationship, and it was fun for them to be able to go to the same place and play like that. It's interesting that when we beat BC in the final in Milwaukee, Patrick had left. He turned pro that year. He could have been a senior.
Oh, boy.
So that would have been interesting. But Ben was there. He was doing video for BC because he was back from Europe. So he was there and watching it. So it was, Mom was not comfortable that weekend.
Who did she cheer for?
Yeah, so it was a good thing that Ben wasn't on the ice. So no, we've had fun. Hockey has been our teacher, our guide, our facilitator, our disciplinarian. It's been a great walk of life for us, and we've been very blessed that way.
You certainly have. Let's go back to your playing days in the NHL. You're lining up against Bobby Clarke or any other phenomenal setter for that matter. Yeah. And you can pick any two wingers that you want on your left and your right. Who would those two guys be?
Well, I'm going to preempt my answering that by telling you a face-off story. Another one.
I like that. Okay. I like that. Yeah, okay.
So you will enjoy this because it involves somebody you know. So I was around when Gordie Howe was still playing for Hartford. So I got to play his last year. I got a game against him, and we're playing at the Met Center, and he's playing right wing, and their center gets kicked out, defensive zone. So in comes Mr. Hockey. And I'm facing off against Mr. Hockey, and I'm thinking, he's going to cut me. I know he's going to cut me. He's just going to swing around with his big elbow and hit me right in the nose. And I don't even, I think I closed my eyes.
You tried to get yourself kicked out of the circle.
God. It was so, but I wasn't even worried about winning or losing. I was just, here it comes. Get ready for it. Oh, my God. Oh, my gosh. It was so funny. Oh, yeah. It was, but that was a thrill in itself. I mean, to have, because I had got my autograph. I got an autograph from him when I was 12 years old living in Saskatoon, and he was playing for the Red Wings, and now I'm playing against him, and he was taking a face-off against me. So it was just a riot. It was just a riot. But if I could line up with any two wingers, like anywhere, oh my goodness, that is, we had some pretty good players in Minnesota. You know what? I'm going to give a shout out to a young man that I played with. That probably, you guys probably don't know this fact. Do you remember a player named Håkan Loob? 5'9", Swede.
Okay.
$175. First Swedish player to score 50 goals in the National Hockey League. Oh. That's not an easy accomplishment. And we got to play, I had my best years because I played with him, middle six. But he was just a phenomenal player. So 50 goals from a little Swede. It's funny. He had two brothers that were 6'4", 6'5". They used to beat the snot out of him. So he was a tough little Swede. Not too, you can't say that too often. But he was tough, and we taught him. We lived in the same neighborhood, and we had to teach him how to learn English. We'd watch Price is Right on the road together. Come on, Joe. But this little guy, he could play. And he was, so I have a soft spot for Håkan Loob just because he was just such a phenomenal player, and yet he's under the radar. Like nobody will know that. Actually, the only jersey I have of guys I played with is his. We played in the Canada Cup against each other, and I got his jersey after. Wow. So that's a little tidbit for you guys. Yeah. And the other winger, oh my gosh, there's so many. But I was just reading a story about him, and so he's fresh in my mind. Is Mike Bossy. Just what he was doing at that time, 50 goals in 50 games, was the first guy to do it after the Rocket Richard. And, he was winning the Lady Byng. I mean, he wasn't a big bruiser, but he was smart. He was crafty. You know what? Goal scoring is a gift from the Lord. I mean, not everybody's got it. Yeah. And he had it, and he was fun to watch.
Wow, I don't know the first guy. The second guy's a heck of a pick.
For sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. looking back now, toughest, probably Gordie Howe, but the toughest son of a gun, grittiest guy you went up against?
Well, gritty, like fighting tough, or just a pain in the.
Yeah, the little black gnat that never goes away.
For me, it was a guy, Dale Hunter.
Oh boy.
I think he'd probably be a couple guys guy.
we broke into the league about the same time. He was major, junior, and I was college, and we had a few scraps. I mean, I didn't scrap much, and I can't really call them scraps. It was more wrestling, but we, he didn't like me, and there was just, and it's funny how you dial into guys, like they just rub you the wrong way, and he was a very effective player. You talk about a competitor.
Yeah.
He would be at the top of the list, and so yeah, Dale Hunter was a guy for me that when it was time to play the Washington Capitals, I knew it was going to be a long night. Yeah.
You knew where he was on.
Yes.
At all times. That's where the eyes in the back of your head come in really handy.
Yes, they do.
Absolutely.
Yes, they do.
Back in your day when you were coaching for the Badgers, it was the old WCHA, which I miss immensely. What was the toughest barn you walked into back in those days?
Yost Arena, because it was so intimate. Like, they were on top of you, and their fans were nasty. Like, it was tough for parents to go there. Like, they treated them roughly, if I'll use that term. So it was in the locker room was underneath the stand, and they were on top of you. It reminded me of a couple junior rinks I played at where, they had the old netting, and the fans had their fingers on the netting. And but I will say this, the old Ralph up in North Dakota, when they had really good teams, was a very intimidating place too. And it was so damn cold up there. It was, so those two come to mind right away. Michigan State was okay. It was, Tech was a fun rink. It wasn't intimidating. Their teams were really good and big, but it was a fun rink to be in. The Minneapolis rink, the old one, Mariucci, it was kind of unique at one end. It had that slant door. Yeah.
That was, and if you're in that back corner, you couldn't see that.
Yeah. It was weird.
Yeah.
The Colorado College, the old rink there, the Broadmoor was, it was so small. They weren't as on top of you as much as Yost, but I would put those two right up there in terms of Yost. And
there's some history in all those rinks.
Yeah. It's the WCHA playoffs were just sold out. It was fun to be a part of that. But it's a business, and when the Big Ten come around and they're telling Barry Alvarez, we're giving you $10 million at the end of the year for the Big Ten TV rights, you're going to take it, because that's part of his job is to bring money in, and it's too bad but look what's happened now to money. I mean, it's being overrun by what's happening with the portal and the NLI. It's just, in many ways, it might be a blessing to not be in college hockey right now, or college sports period, because of what's going on with the NLI and all the ramifications. I talked to Mike Hastings. He spends quite a bit of his time trying to raise money, because before he can go recruit and talk to a player, he's got to know how much is he playing with? How many chips does he have on the table? Think about that.
That's different for a college coach.
Big time.
Absolutely.
So that's the world in which the college coaches are in. So it's a different beast for sure. It's a different beast.
It's got to be a negotiator and a financier at the same time.
It used to be the AD's job to do that. Now, as a head coach, you're spending your time reaching out to alumni, and it's gotten way different.
Yeah. So, Coach, you're out of the business now. You're officially retired.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself still staying connected, watching college games, watching pro games? I mean, you're a hockey lifer, let's face it.
I watch the Badgers on TV when I can. I like watching them. And it'll be interesting when they make the ice sheet bigger, smaller. They're shrinking that down. That'll be, Minnesota did that. The Badgers are going to do that. I think that'll play well, because people used to use that against us. Because, well, if you want to play pro, why would you go there? They got a big sheet. Mm-hmm. Where there was a time where you could use that. Well, if you want to play in the Olympics, we play on a big sheet. It'll help your skills. So depending on what spin you want to put on it, but I like watching that. I watch the Wild. I do, because when you're in somebody's backyard, you pull for them. You can't help it. There's almost that little tug, and you guys, I don't know if you knew this, but John Hines is a good friend of ours. We coached the World Junior Championship together when we won gold in Helsinki. There goes Finland again.
There you go. Wow.
So
I missed that.
Heinzie's there now, and so we've had him out to the lake, and we've gone into town, and we have a great line. We won the under 18 World Championship together. We were coaching together, and then when we got the World team together, we used this line, Heinzie, we're getting the band back together. And it was like the trainers, the team doctors, we're getting the band back together again. So that was one of the first things he said. We were trying to get Doc Stewart from Minnesota, who was our team doctor, awesome gentleman, and we're trying to get together for a dinner. And he says, "Are we getting the band back together?" I said, "Yeah, we're trying to." So,
Nice.
Yeah. So.
Nice.
Oh, looking back at all the levels that you coached at, from D3 to pro, was there any particular? Well, the Badgers, you won a national title, so obviously that stands out. But when you think about these different levels, was there a level that you enjoyed more than the other?
That's a really insightful question, and I may answer it in a way that maybe you didn't even think of. But I think working generally with high-level players is a lot more fun because you can do more things. You can expand the things that you want to do. For instance, when you work with Division III, our son Ben was there when we were at Eau Claire, so we were together. St. Olaf. So we were there together, and you got to take baby steps, in terms of the type of drill you do and how you can make it harder, so it's more challenging. And we get to a point, and Ben would say, "Dad, don't let it go. Let them have success with this. Let them feel this." Because I'd want to ramp it up and make it more difficult, give them something else to think about or a read or a look or another guy in there. And he was absolutely right. When you go to higher levels and they can do things that you just, hey, we want to do this, a forecheck or something, they're on it like white on rice. Okay. And so there's that's an enjoyable piece. At the Division III level, when you do see improvement, it's rewarding, but it's a different kind of rewarding because it's baby steps. It's just incremental. When you get him at the top level, great story. So this will describe what I'm talking about. So 1990, Canada Cup, Bob Johnson, right before he gets ill and passes. This is his last coaching. He just won the Stanley Cup in Pittsburgh. We're coaching Team USA in the Canada Cup. So Mike Badano, Brett Hull, Chris Chelios, Mike Richter. I mean, this is a Hall of Fame of USA hockey players in many ways. And we're practicing in Pittsburgh. And Bob has written up the drill, and we're doing 3 in a row. We go for 20 straight minutes, don't have to come back to the board, just switch drills. It's like this. Vroom, vroom, vroom. Not a pass is missed. If it's a bad pass, they catch it. And we're standing on the side. We should be recording this right now because this is unbelievable. This is hockey practice nirvana. It was just like, oh my gosh. So, and you can't do that at every level. So you have to, what you try to get out of the practice is based on what you have to work with. The rewards are different. Okay. Does that illustrate that?
Yeah. Makes sense.
It was fun.
Huge illustration.
Yeah.
Oh,
got it.
Coach, we are just elated that you sat down with us. This has been an awesome talk. Yeah. Thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah, you're very welcome. There's only one thing missing here, and it comes in a cold glass.
Yes.
I just insinuated. I never said it.
We like to call them hockey pops.
Hockey pops, yeah.
I happen to be thinking about that myself.
We've been talking for so long.
Little parties.
Well, thank you, guys. It was awesome. Thank you, JC. Mogs, it was really fun. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please don't forget to leave a review on your favorite social media platform. Helps Mogi and I stay in the game.
And again, a huge thank you to our special guest, Mike Eaves, as well as you folks, our faithful listeners. Please remember to visit our sponsors, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Clinic, Hertel Law, Ryan Flagg at State Farm Insurance, Dooley's Pub, Williams Diamond Center, and Eau Claire Ford. And as JC said, please follow us on your favorite social media platforms. And remember, folks, until next time, keep your head on a swivel and stay on your inside edges.